flash traffic is right here.
Jack, are you good? Okay.
There you go.
Okay. I'm going to call this public hearing to order. Tom and Darlene, are you ready? Okay. In attendance this evening are Supervisors Fisher, Agizio, Fleer, Barney, and Cassiola, as well as Township Solicitor Gretchen Moore and Township Engineer Dan Dizeroth. If you intend to speak at all this evening, please stand up. Even if you think you might say one word, please stand up for a swearing in. Thank you. Tonight's public hearing is to consider conditional use application 2022-0027 for the Cool Valley Illustrative Site Plan, location Lewicki Road, C1 General Commercial BPD Business Park Plan Development, and IHPD Interstate Highway Plan Development zoning districts. This public hearing was duly advertised on September 8th and September 12th, 2022. We'll start with a presentation by the applicant. Please state your name before you speak, sorry.
RJ Sabatino, 3895.
You can actually hold it too if that's easier.
RJ Sabatino, 3895 Stone Ridge Lane, Dublin, Ohio.
Thank you.
John Haynes, 420 Jackson Street, Columbus, Ohio.
Thank you.
Again, RJ Sabatino, thank you so much for having us this evening. We're excited and proud to be presenting the Cool Valley Illustrative Site Plan for Phase 1. So this is a project that we've been working on for many, many years. Came 2010, earlier 2010, to go through the Interstate Highway Plan Development process to rezone the property. A master planned zoning for over 700 acres. So here we are for the next step, the illustrative site plan for a little over 100 acres of the first phase. So again, the illustrative site plan identifies the uses of certain pads. Accordingly, for compliance with our zoning, which we do comply with the IHPD, and we're here before you again for the illustrative site plan, a true mix of uses we have here, a mix of business and residential, much needed for the township. We've received some concerns regarding traffic, rightfully so. We've committed to substantial off-site improvements, which we've set forth in our application, kind of with a cheat sheet, so we like to call it, which we can review more specifically if there are any questions later. When we went through the Planning Commission process, before our pre-application meeting with Gateway Engineers, we received a concern regarding access. We accommodated to add an additional emergency access on the, I've got a pointer here, along the residential. In addition to our primary access on Lewicki Road. We've also met with the Maple Ridge Community HOA subdivision a month or so ago to review the plan, answer any questions that they may have. And here we are this evening again before you, the supervisors, for an affirmative vote, we hope, for our illustrative site plan to bring much needed commercial and residential to the township. So we're happy to answer any questions that you may have, and thank you for having us.
I know that's something that came out of your meeting with the Maple Ridge, were having that additional 50-foot buffer around where Maple Ridge is. Is that included in this plan?
When we went through the planning commission, we received a few conditions to forward this application along to you at the supervisor level. I'm not sure that we specifically had a condition for a 50-foot landscape buffer. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, so there, I had reached out during one of our previous conversations and said through planning that that was something that needed to be considered, was an additional 50-foot buffer on the Maple Ridge side.
So I think the primary point of concern is this residential here, and then Maple Ridge here.
Yes.
So these are townhomes, and here exists a very, very thick set of mature trees on the Maple Ridge property that we are not, will not, and cannot impact, that will remain. Additionally, from our property line, we can commit to a 25-foot setback from buildings, a buffer, no building buffer setback from our property line of 25 foot.
So
Which
I don't
would-
know if you've ever walked back there, because I did, and 50 feet is nothing. And where you're saying there's 50 feet on their side is nothing compared to where the back of their homes are. In fact, I literally had a resident stand where I stood at the back of their property, stand where the 50-foot ends, and it wasn't far at all. And there isn't across the whole way, I walked it, mature trees across the whole way, which is why I asked for a 50-foot buffer on your side to prevent the people who live on Maple Ridge, who are gonna now be surrounded by a pretty impactful development. 50 feet isn't far. I mean, 50 feet would be from here to the end of the building.
Yeah, I mean, the scale, I'm sorry, John, the scale of, I mean, the distance of their backyard, where their backyard begins, to our property line, that distance is substantial in and of itself. And in addition to, from our property line back to where the buildings, any buildings may be, any townhomes may be, 25 feet, I mean, that's a very, very substantial distance in our belief.
25 feet is not substantial.
25 feet from our property line.
I,
And then our property line, there's the mature trees, a row of trees, and then they get to their backyard.
have you walked back there?
We were just there.
There's not mature trees across the whole way.
Yeah, we can, there may be, I mean, we can pull up an aerial, but, I mean, that's, yeah.
So the 25 feet, one of them.
Can you talk into the microphone? Sorry.
So, yeah, so, the 25 feet is that, we don't have exactly knowing where we're going to put the townhomes on that site yet. So the 25 feet is something that we can easily commit to now. And then once we're able to determine, and when we come back here for approval for, the putting of the townhomes, then it's a lot easier to commit. But 25 feet right now is just something that we know that we can do, and we know we have the setback for it without having, to make any substantial judgments or, placing of the houses just yet.
Could we, I mean,
You're essentially taking the people who have woods all behind them and saying that 25 feet is substantial. It's not.
again,
So
I'm-
just for clarification, when the Maple Ridge plan was developed, it was developed as a PRD, and it includes its own buffer. So it has a 50-foot buffer around itself.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
What Cindy's saying is adjoining to that, do you know where the limits of your grading will be? Because that's going to determine where the buffer will be. When you're saying 25 feet, you're just saying a 25-foot setback to the house. I think in terms of buffer, when we think of buffer, that means undisturbed area.
Correct.
So the question is, how much undisturbed area can you afford? I realize that topography is steep through there, but I've not seen any alternative grading plans. I mean, can that street kick over at all any more to the left? You know, it comes back, they're just really parallel to the property line with Maple Ridge, almost parallel to it. Can it kick a little more to the left? Is there anything that can be
Are
done?
you saying, we're saying right here?
Yeah, that street is almost like a bowling alley. I mean, it's a straight line. If you kicked or cantered that to back towards 12 o'clock on the plan, or to the north, whatever that direction is, can you open that up to create any more buffer there? I think that's what we're asking.
Yeah, and I think we've looked at it a lot, and I mean, how our road is aligned, and I mean, the relative density of the product that we're putting in there, brand new townhomes is what we're planned for. I mean, I think this is a reasonable plan, and the 50-foot existing buffer of large mature trees on the Maple Ridge side, in addition to the 25-foot that we've got no build, 25-foot no build, is what we're asking for.
I don't think it's enough.
I don't think it's enough. I mean, I didn't fully understand it until I walked it myself, and 50 feet sounds like a lot, but it's really not. And so when you're actually standing at the back of their property, so when they say there's a 50-foot buffer behind their property, really they have very little property that sits behind their townhomes and then starts the 50-foot buffer. So it sounds like you would have like a big yard and then a 50-foot buffer and then another in 25, but that's not the reality of the situation. And if you're able to put 25 without an issue, I think you could find another 25 without problem.
And that's, I mean, I completely understand what you're saying and appreciate it. And we've looked at the plan, and we've looked at kind of how we need to have things laid out. And right now, I mean, I think that's what we have to do.
You have to do the 50-foot?
Have to do the 25.
25 is like I said, is something that we can commit to now.
Isn't our ordinance 50 feet buffers?
I don't know.
25 is the number that we can, 25 is what we can commit to now until we figure out where these houses, where we're going to, where the location.
But you understand, once we approve this site plan, you're saying once you come back to us, there's nothing we have to hold you to adding to that. You could still come back to us a second time and say, we looked at it and we still can't do another 25. We're telling you, and I can't speak for everybody, but, and maybe if you want to speak up, if you agree or disagree with me so we know what the majority is, but you're ringing these people's homes with commercial and residential, something that hasn't been there before where they've lived like this for a very long time. So 50 feet is not a far distance.
This room's more than 50 feet.
Yeah.
This what is it?
This room is
more than 50 feet.
So,
52 this way and 40 this way.
yeah, so all I'm asking is for two of these rooms back to back between the houses that already exist there and your future development. And I can, again, only speak for myself, but I would caution you to say no to this request without really considering it. I mean, Darlene, Tom, Frank, what are your thoughts? To me, 50 feet is not a lot.
I'll agree with you, Cindy, and also, while we're talking about this townhouse property, that red emergency exit coming off of that hillside, going into a cul-de-sac that's going to be gated. Does anybody realize how steep that road is from Merganza, or that path that they got? Right now, I'll call it a path.
Yeah.
I know what that was like. And to have that coming off of Merganza Road, going up to the cul-de-sac as an emergency exit and be gated on top of that, or locked, what good's that on a cul-de-sac?
Darlene, I have to speak up on that one, because when we initially met with the developer, we asked them to, I asked, that's really topographically, that's the only place that emergency road can be put in at a reasonable grade. I think the grade was 15%. Your engineer might
believe-
17 and up around it?
Yeah, see that?
Yeah, I see
Yeah,
it.
I believe it was 15%. It would be paved,
13% max is what we say, yeah.
13%. So our maximum grade for a township road is 12. So it's a little steeper than that.
Okay.
It would be steep, there's no question about it, but again, if it's going to be paved, it would be useful. The radiuses would, I believe, are big enough, at least that emergency vehicles could access it. If you ever had to get people out a different way, it wouldn't be used on a daily basis. Again, it would only be used in an emergency situation.
Now, my next question to you is, it's going to be paved, it's going to be gated, it's going to be locked. Who's responsible for removing the snow?
I mean, if it was only used on an emergency basis, I don't know how emergency responders would work to that, whether they would plow it during certain times of the year, or you just, you have a plow truck available. If you have to open it up, you plow it. I don't know how that would go. That could be in the covenants. It could be something that's required of their HOA or
I believe-
something like that.
I believe it was at the plan commission level, that was made to be a condition as part of the emergency access road that we added as maintenance and so forth, and the upkeep of that emergency access road were to be maintained by the
Who's going to
association.
maintain it?
The association.
The association's going to maintain that access road down to Merganza.
You would have a master association
correct.
for the whole development, so it would be supported not just by the residential.
Have the key to that gate and open it up and keep
So with
it
emergency
plowed.
responders, I mean, so will the emergency responders. So it's not, no one's going to have to rush out there and, open the key. The emergency responders will have access to that gate to get in and out, so that when they get there for an emergency, they can get through as quickly as possible.
Well, I was very, very familiar with that that path. I'm going to call it a red dog path years ago, going off from Merganza up to the top of that property, and it was steep.
Yeah, we have substantial grading on the property, yeah.
I just think we're starting, if I'm being honest, we're starting off on the wrong foot by your, I don't want to say refusal, but just refusal to add in 50 feet. That's not far. It's it's less than 2 of these rooms.
It's not that we don't want to add it, we don't know yet. I think that's.
Yeah, we don't know that we have the ability to add. I mean, we could lose 70 lots. I mean, it makes it financially unfeasible, and unfortunately, that is the reality in some situations.
I find it difficult to believe, and I've approved quite a few PRDs and plans over the past 10 years as a board member. I find it hard to believe that a 50-foot setback would cause you to lose 70 lots.
Yeah, and I'm just saying the road alignment that Mr. Deseroth was mentioning, if you see here, and then, I mean, you kind of compare if we're doing a comparable product, I'm not sure that, I don't believe we are, townhomes, picture them along the street. I mean, we can't have them right on the pavement. I mean, they have to be set back, and then now we have to be set back 25 feet from our property line. I mean, that space.
Well, what's the compromise in terms of what, if the board's desirous of a buffer, couldn't you limit your front yard setback? What's the minimum that you would have for your front yard setback? Could you get away with 20 feet,
Yeah, we have a standard on a TND, that's a traditional neighborhood development, for 5 feet, where the porches would start. And I know this isn't a traditional neighborhood, but we did develop for the area, the new area in South Point. So what are you proposing on your setbacks right now?
That's it, we don't know, we haven't, we have not gotten that far in designing and saying where we're placing these.
What about the product, the depth of the unit? Do you know that?
Yeah, I don't have that off the top of my head for, I mean, we can look at, I mean, what does the IHPD say? I mean, for what's allowable, what's not
Well,
allowable.
there's no, I mean,
Yeah.
that's up to, that would be up to you to come back in with something, there's,
So is this something that happens when we come back in, or is this something that does
Well,
not?
single-family use category. Yeah, so the minimum front yard setback, I guess, according to this, is 25 feet.
So,
But it doesn't,
yeah.
let me see what it says, sir. Single-family garden apartment, single-family
wanna get the
townhouse
scale.
unit. Is it 18 feet?
Yeah.
Already have that.
I'm sorry, single-family, I think it, single-family detached, I believe it says
Townhouse unit, 18
Is
feet.
it
18
18
feet,
Dan and
yeah.
then 15
Oh, wait, that's the
others?
width, minimum lot width, wait a minute. Yeah, it's 18 feet front yard setback.
Yeah.
So did you recognize that it could be 18 feet?
I
And then a
mean,
unit?
I don't have a plan in front of me, unfortunately,
Well,
but
can you tell us the depth of that, from the edge of the right-of-way of the street to that back red line that abuts Maple Ridge? Can you tell us? I can't tell on a scale on this.
yeah, this is a 200 scale. I mean, I see it over here. I don't have a measurement tool here. I mean, I can.
Well, I don't think we're going to solve the engineering
Yeah, I agree.
issues tonight. I think if the board's desirous of a 50-foot buffer, then that's a condition. You just put it on. This is a conditional use hearing. You can apply reasonable conditions to the development, and, we work from there. I think
Yeah, agreed.
that's the best way to handle it.
This is the first development of its kind in our township. I don't know that 18 foot is a magic number. We could consider some leeway on that. Like I said, we had a traditional neighborhood design of 5 feet.
Yeah.
But where the Andy of Mayberry, the front porches, everybody sat on their front porch, and their neighbors walked right down in the street sidewalk in front of their houses, and they talked to them right from their front porch.
I would rather squeeze the front
Right.
yards and allow the people in Maple Ridge to maintain some of what they already have than to cut the people in Maple Ridge short. So I'm fine with shortening.
But
the
then we
front
got to
yards.
consider what that does for their parking on their driveways too, though. I'm just saying that's where the magic 18-foot number came from.
To Dan's point, the engineering can be between Dan and RJ and John, and they can figure out how to make it work. But for me, and again, I can only speak for myself, that's a non-negotiable. So I think at this point, we'll see if the board wants to make it a condition. I also think that Supervisor Barney has a valid point in a consideration of making sure that emergency access is not something that we're just throwing in because we told you need an emergency access, that it would actually be an effective way to reach the people who live in those areas, and if we need an emergency access, so
Completely.
if it's as steep as she's saying, which I haven't been back there, I think maybe we need to
So
reconsider.
we're going to grade it to 13.
Maximum, 13% grade. And again, yep, those engineering details are still quite a ways away, but obviously we agree, that's why we put the road in, and that's why we'll do the substantial grading that we need to do to install it to make it a benefit in case of emergency.
We actually looked at it, we actually studied it a little bit further to see if it could be a continuation of a real road, and we don't advise to that. This is the best they can do, but it is useful. I would recommend it. I mean, the details can be worked out, but 13% is doable in our area. So it's not desirable, but it's doable.
I also don't think that emergency road is wide enough. I think it should be at least 15-foot wide.
It is, I think.
Said 12.
Yeah, we're 12 feet.
Just 12-foot wide with 1-foot wedge curb.
Yeah,
Yeah, if it's 12-foot wide, you're gonna need guardrail all the way down it.
yeah,
What's
that's,
that?
You're gonna need guardrail all the way along it, so it probably make it a little bit wider and get some shoulders in it. I mean, I think that's all doable. Because the path, the grade in the path, it's just a little more grading that would have to be worked out there. Or maybe there's a small wall, or, you know what I mean? So I think that detail can be worked out. I strongly advise it.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, understood.
So let's write.
So you're gonna have it gated on both ends?
I believe we'll do what needs to be done. I think it does need to be gated, and then the emergency access, the emergency responders will be able to.
There's lots of technology out there. You can have emergency vehicles that have automatic gates that flip it up.
With
I mean,
mature
there's all
trees.
sorts of stuff that you can do now in terms of modernizing that and making it most useful for everybody that has to use it.
How many townhouses you planning on putting on there?
What's the number that we have,
I
John?
think it's like 60 or 70.
No, you're gonna have to have additional parking.
Well, we're going to, there'll be most likely be garages or for.
Yeah, but you're still gonna have to have additional parking.
Yeah, we've got 78 planned, I believe. I mean, obviously that's something that we come back for as we get further along down the process. But this is just the illustrative site plan hearing to lay out our respective uses and make sure that we comply with zoning, which we do.
We haven't, yeah. We haven't
Any
gotten to the
other-
design.
Pardon me?
We haven't gotten in that level yet.
Well, I'm just saying,
Right,
so when you do go there, you know you got to put in additional parking.
We'll put in what's needed, most certainly.
Okay. Any other board questions or comments before we open it to the public? Go ahead.
Yes,
Sorry, Ray.
go ahead, Tom.
Before we talked with the public, would you describe the improvements you're making on our Lewicki Road and at the South Point Boulevard and the approach to South Point Boulevard from Lewicki Road and down towards Cannonsburg direction?
Sure. So where would you like to start, the Wiki or South Point? So,
Tell them the whole thing.
right, so starting at,
Yeah, again, I'll let John go ahead for the 3 different intersections, but I'll say again that, I mean, these off-site improvements are being worked through with the applicable authority. In that case, it's PennDOT for the engineering approval and so forth. And go ahead, John.
yeah, so all of these.
Microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. So all of these intersections, again, were part of the traffic study, which was done by Trans Associates, as well as GAI, as well as was handed over to PennDOT for approval to make sure that all the flows were, were adjusted for when we build these new facilities. So starting at South Point Morganza, we're going to be putting turning lanes coming off of South Point, turning into right onto Morganza, and then from South Point Morganza all the way down to Lewicki will be a 4-lane road, i.e. meaning we'll be putting 2 lanes on each side.
It's down to Lewicki Road, period.
Correct.
Not all the way to
McMurray?
Maple Ridge.
No, it will stop.
Just stop right there at the bend.
Yeah, right where right where we go into into Cool Valley. And then that intersection there will turn into, it will be a 2-lane road there at Lewicki, a 4-lane, road. When coming into Lewicki, it will go up to a 2-lane into a roundabout, which will send you to the
Is
designated.
the roundabout going to be up on Lewicki Road, or is it?
Yeah,
Against?
Darlene,
Here.
can you just
Lewicki.
talk in?
You can see it right up there.
Can everybody hear her?
Am I not talking into the mic?
No, it's
I
not you.
apologize.
Darlene, can you make sure you're talking into your microphone?
So if, RJ, would you scroll
Yeah.
over and down a little
This
bit?
mouse is a little laggy. So you,
Yeah, so you can see, so that's the roundabout. So it will come up, it'll be 4 lanes on Lewicki, and then it will come into this roundabout where it will distribute where you need to go.
apologies for the mouse.
Did you say 4 lanes on Lewicki, or is it just 4 lanes on Morganza to Lewicki?
It will be 4 lanes on Lewicki, so coming up to, right before you get to the roundabout, then it will drop down to 2 lanes to get into the roundabout, to spin around, to go where you need to go.
So you're going to merge from 4 lanes to 2 lanes?
That's the way the roundabout works. That's the way what PennDOT suggested for us.
That seems like a traffic nightmare.
PennDOT believes and stated, and the traffic study said that, and we have our GAI guy here, Mark from JI, who's our traffic engineer, that that is the appropriate way to enter into a roundabout.
But when you go from 4 to 2, won't there be some sort of a traffic backup while people are merging?
Mark, do you want to answer that for the supervisor?
I'm Mark Bonavena, at 1639 Denniston Street, Pittsburgh, PA. Vandevenne. So going up Lewicki, it is 2 lanes going up, merging to 1, but going down Lewicki, it's 1 lane going to 2 lanes. So you're not going to have as much traffic going down Lewicki to Merganza. But going to the roundabout, this is a standard roundabout design where you're going from 2 lanes to 1 lane. That's how PennDOT designs it. So I'm not sure. I understand
I don't know how to say this politically correct, but let's just say some of PennDOT's designs aren't always the best. So, having lived here for a very long time, I'm just going to say that I can't imagine a smooth transition on a heavy traffic day going from 4 lanes to 2 lanes into a roundabout. Like, that seems like a absolute disaster waiting to happen.
What would happen though is if you have 2 lanes in the roundabouts, you have people stuck on the inside lane, people stuck on the outside lane trying to.
So then why have 2 coming in?
Because the traffic, that's the way the traffic is. The way the stacking on the traffic is to have 2 lanes of traffic.
But if you need 2 lanes of traffic, and I'm not trying to be difficult here, but if you
I
need 2
understand.
lanes of traffic coming in, why all of a sudden do you not need 2 lanes of traffic? I understand that you can't have 2 lanes of traffic in a roundabout. Trust me. I've driven in South Carolina where they have 2 lanes, and I can't tell you how many exits I've missed because I've been in the wrong lane. But I'm just saying, like, if you're having if you need the 2 lanes coming in, why not? That doesn't make sense.
So from PennDOT's perspective, it's easier to merge outside the roundabout than within the roundabout. So I guess that's ultimately the reason why they want the 2 lanes going to the 1 lane outside the roundabout, because it's easier to merge outside the roundabout. It's easier to do a zipper merge where everyone takes their turn and merges outside the roundabout.
Agreed, but what I'm asking is, do we actually need, and I don't know the answer to this question, maybe the answer is no, but like, do we actually need the 2 lanes if we're merging into 1 anyways? Because all you're doing is, we know how people merge, and people are gonna be slamming on brakes and causing all kinds of traffic in order, especially during heavy traffic hours, in order to merge. I mean, think about the tunnels going into Pittsburgh. How many times have you ever driven into Pittsburgh where there's no accident, there's no reason to stop other than people don't know how to merge with each other?
That is correct. So yes, the traffic counts dictate that there are 2 lanes going up.
Except when you're driving in the roundabout, and then all of a sudden the traffic only dictates 1.
Well, again, it's easier to merge outside the roundabout than within the roundabout, which is why they're merging outside the roundabout.
I'm just trying to think of our police and the number of calls they're gonna get.
Guys, do you want to put up the plan and show the plan, maybe of what that looks like? I mean, I have it if you need it, because I don't think you're describing it correctly, honestly.
Yeah, our mouse is not working here, so we can't really switch our screens very easily.
No.
The other thing, there's an awful lot of traffic coming off of South Point Boulevard, dumping every which way. And both morning and night. It's already been backed up all the way from the red light where South Point hits Merganza, all the way down past where you connect to go onto the interstate.
Yep.
Backed up.
Yep, you're right.
So there's the roundabout.
So that's the roundabout design. So you can see the 2 lanes go into the Lewicki Road.
So it doesn't look to me like they're merging. It looks to me like one's gonna go into the roundabout and one's gonna go, I don't know where that one's
Right
going.
only, yeah.
Huh?
Right only,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it doesn't look to me like there's a merge there. Am I wrong, Dan?
So that's, so,
Do you have the overall plan that show you, I have the overall plan that shows the whole thing. Maybe that would help people a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to pull that up, we've got a lot of sheets that we can go through here.
I
and
mean,
we've
there was an
given-
overall plan that would, and give a description of the traffic improvements from McMurray Road all the way up Lewicki. I think that would help people a little bit better, describing it.
Yep.
Do we have?
There you go, right, there's the overall plan, right? That's your overall traffic improvement plan? Well, this is the intersection of Morganza and,
yeah, this is Morganza Road.
yes.
So this goes northbound, and this is going southbound, so and this is Lewicki Road right here.
So the roundabout is actually in development.
Yes,
Okay, get everybody oriented to where they are, because I think that's the confusion to begin with.
Okay, so the roundabout is right in the actual development, not
Correct.
on Merganza Road.
Correct.
correct.
It's up Lewicki Road so far up.
It's on that plan, Darlene, if you look
Yeah,
at it. It's
I
in-
see it.
In the development itself. That's the
Right.
confusion.
It's right there, yeah.
So this is where, this is Morganza.
Right,
Lewicki.
coming off of South Point.
Correct.
Coming down Merganza, there's a red light, that's the red light up there at
Correct.
South Point.
No.
Or is this going to be another red light
This
that
is the
you're,
red light we're going to be building and installing.
where at?
Lewicki and Morganza?
Right as you, okay, so when you're coming down that hill,
Correct.
there's going to be a red light at the bottom of that hill.
It'll be
Right.
4 lanes. Well, actually here, it'll be 5 because there'll be a turning lane as well. So there'll be our total.
Can you just, yeah, sorry.
And can you be cognizant that I need to take everybody down?
Yeah. Pause
That's
before
fair.
the next person speaks and give her a chance to get reset.
Sorry, sorry about that. So, I guess to orient everybody is that if you look at the illustrative site plan, if you see, actually, the picture, actually, this would be a lot easier. Let's do, remember what I sent you today? Can you show the picture of the overview where each, with respect to the aerial? Yes. Yes, okay. So I think that this will make things a little bit easier. Oops. To put everything in perspective. So this is,
Sorry.
it's okay. All right, so this is whole phase 1 right there, correct? This is the illustrative site plan that we are presenting before you right now. This is the improvements that we're going to be making to South Point Morganza, right there, okay? And then,
Describe it one more time for everybody.
sure.
You said a turn lane.
So we're going to be putting turning lanes here, which will extend the whole way back, as you can see, so that we can have plenty of room for stacking as the cars come up. And then when you turn right down Morganza here, this Morganza here will be 5 lanes up here, or 6 lanes right here, because there'll be turning lanes, and then it'll turn into 4 lanes till you get down to Lewicki. Lewicki right here, where we'll be installing a light, which will be connected and coordinated with this light up here. Then you will be able to turn right into, onto Lewicki here. And this is where that map that we showed previously, where it starts to go up and into the roundabout on, within the project and within the development, where you can get distributed and sent out everywhere. We are going to be putting turning lanes back here as well. And then we're also going to be doing McMurray and Morganza down here, this intersection down here, which will be adding turning lanes, widening the road, as well as putting a traffic light, which is much needed.
How are you going to widen the road from McMurray onto Merganza at that bridge?
So the bridge, that we're going to put a turning lane in there. If you notice, those 2 shoulders,
So you're gonna take away from the shoulders.
Yeah, so the shoulders, we're going to take a little bit away from the shoulders, and we're going to make this 3 lanes right there. So
We'll
it'll
make
be a
it
tur-
3 lanes.
Yeah, instead of 2.
So the turning lane coming from McMurray will go right on to, because that's a that
Yep, no,
bridge
yep.
is a railroad
Yep,
underneath it.
understood, correct. And so we're going to move the shoulder just a little bit, create another lane, and then we're going to dig into the hillside. Do you know where you know what I'm talking about on the hillside? Coming up. So if you come up McMurray right here, right there's a hillside, right? Where the overpass is. And we're going to dig into that hillside to add
Okay,
another
where the
lane.
overpass for 79 goes over Merganza.
Correct.
How does digging into the hillside add lanes to the bridge?
Oh, no, we're not adding lanes to the bridge. We're adding lanes here. For, right there at McMurray, so that you can go left or straight.
As part of our submission, I apologize. We could obviously go for hours talking about what traffic engineers have already discussed for hours and hours, but we created this submission, this sheet, which is part of our submission, that outlines bullet points, which we can read into the record if you like, that outline each of the improvements at each of the intersections. But this was part of the submission. We can pull it on the screen. But yeah, it goes through each of those improvements at each of those intersections, 2 of which are currently failed intersections. Failed intersections mean that with a hopeful affirmative vote this evening and moving along the process, we intend to improve these intersections so that the grade is no longer failed intersection.
And we are going to be doing this ourselves. So, these improvements already are in almost $30 million. And, clearly we'll take any help you give us. But as it stands right now, we're on the hook, and we are doing these ourselves right now.
As you exit this development, do you have future plans to go straight across Lewicki?
Can you clarify for me?
If, when you're leaving this development, heading down Lewicki Road to hit Merganza Road, do you have plans to go on the other side of Merganza Road in the
No.
future?
No. Not to
Okay,
my knowledge, no.
coming out of Lewicki Road to Merganza, how many lanes is there going to be exiting this place?
Coming out of
Lewicki, the development, out to Merganza Road, the intersection.
5 or 6? 5.
Said-
5 or 6, Mark.
Going into
No,
2
not that
on Merganza.
5.
So you have 5 exit lanes coming out of there, is that correct?
No,
How many?
Going out.
3.
Yeah, 3 going out.
Oh, going out.
Going-
I'm sorry, I thought you
leaving.
meant total coming in. No, yeah. 3
Leaving.
going out. So it'd be a total of 5, but yeah, 3.
3 leaving, right?
double lefts turning towards
Yeah,
the
you need
interstate.
2 left and 1 to go to McMurray or
Correct.
Canonsburg.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I thought you meant the total.
No. What is the distance from the intersection of Lewicki, Merganza up to this turnaround? Approximate distance this is?
From Lewicki, Morganza to where?
To the roundabout.
To the roundabout. What is the distance?
I don't have that answer for you.
It appears to be about 1,200 feet, Frank?
Okay. Do you have a proposed tenant for this medical building or yet? Do we know?
We've had substantial interest in multiple parcels, specifically what you described as well. However, we cannot disclose anything further than that.
Well, no, I mean, if it's an emergency hospital, I mean, you want to facilitate and get traffic up to that place, it could become a zoo. I mean, and you did say you would have 2 lanes coming in?
Which is correct, which is why we take pride and faith in the engineers that have worked tirelessly to ensure that this traffic will
Time
be
is
sufficient.
crucial in emergencies.
Yeah. No, we agree.
Okay.
With all due respect, we understand what you're saying, but you still have a desire to do it, and you have a desire to do it at a financial cost or a benefit to yourselves, right? I mean, that's just how business is. And we have an obligation to protect the residents that live here. And I'm sure every one of the board members can name an intersection or an area of the township in which somebody swore up and down the traffic would be great, and then you try to get there and it is a literal nightmare. So you have to put yourselves in our shoes and, maybe not, maybe cut us a little slack, and we'll do the same for you when we're saying, we're gonna question this and we're gonna ask and make sure, because at the end of the day, the people that they're gonna come back and yell and scream at isn't you guys, it's us.
Completely understand.
Yeah, we,
Yeah,
yes.
Cindy, so regarding traffic, Mike Haberman from our office has been involved in the traffic study review all the way here. Mike's here tonight if the board has any questions, but so one of the things that we want the board to recognize is these improvements will allow so many trips. Each associated development will generate a number of trips. So based upon these improvements, Mike and our recommendation is that we condition the development based upon the trips that they are allocating to the development. And then we'll keep a scorecard as developments come in, because the last and final piece of this is eventually at some point, there's gonna need to be an improvement at the intersection of South Point Boulevard and Morganza Road towards the interstate, correct, Mike? Right. Yeah, that's part of the overall improvement. You better come up and speak to the microphone.
We're live streaming.
Haberman, I gave you my card. So the two projects, the one,
With the pointer?
sure. All right. So the one at Morganza and McMurray is being done as a highway occupancy permit by the developers. That's been under review by PennDOT, and it probably multiple times. I believe it's poised to be issued sooner rather than later. Same with the improvements to Morganza and Lewicki, and then Lewicki itself, the roundabout and so forth. That's all being done as a highway occupancy permit by the developer, funded by the developer, designed by the developer.
And one point that, just while you're on that, Lewicki Road is a state road
Correct.
because it goes back to the PennDOT. Yeah,
Correct.
you wouldn't realize that.
Take it over. When did the state take it over?
It's a state road. It's always been a state road on the maps.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's,
Not always.
maybe it was happened with the
Yeah,
interstate,
yeah.
but it is a
Ever
state
since I've
road.
dealt with it, it's been a state
Yeah, they
road.
paint it, they maintain it, we don't maintain it.
So I just want to make that point that everybody, that's why it's considered part of the state improvements, and they're involved in that review and approval.
Is that because the PennDOT put the
Salt storage.
salt storage and everything there, that all of a sudden that's why that road became wider?
It was a
When-
condition, we
yeah.
made them take that road.
Okay, so that's been a while ago.
Yeah, probably with when the interstate, when that interchange was developed.
Okay.
Sorry, Mike.
That's okay. And then the intersection of South Point and Morganza, these improvements are either under design or going to be under design very soon. I believe that that's being done by the Washington County Redevelopment Authority?
Right.
Redevelopment Authority. So probably got some sort of grant or funding from a politician in the area to fund the design of that. I don't know about the cost of the improvements, if that's also coming from a grant, but that's not, or is it?
So that's still,
And microphone.
unless we're able to find something, again, we have stated that we have stated that we will take responsibility for fixing all three intersections. And so,
So in other words, 2 of the intersections are planned for now, and then at some point in time, somebody's going to pull the trigger on the 3rd intersection.
so the third intersection is being designed by the Washington County Redevelopment Authority.
Right, it's
as
being
we
designed, but so I'm just thinking about conditions for this illustrative site plan approval. So we talked about trips that are going to be generated by the road improvements. So is it TNR Properties' position that one way or another, all 3 of those are going to be approved, and they're the trips that we're going to include in the condition? Or are we just looking at two of the improvements now with a third possibly down the road? I think that's kind of what I was getting to before.
I don't think it's a down the road thing. It's going to take significant time to develop and grade and get plans for each parcel and build it out. So it's being designed. So they got funding for the design. The redevelopment authority's taking care of the design and permitting of it. And then I think in the meantime, while grading's happening and plans and tenants are being secured, they're going to try to find funding sources. But if they can't find the funding sources, those improvements are part of the approved traffic study and are going to need to be in place.
Okay, well, then that's
It's
clear.
not a
Then-
later thing, it's, yeah.
Then that's a condition to all
So
three of those intersections.
there's no choice there. So at some point, there will be
Correct.
3 improvements.
Yep. And then just to touch on what Dan was saying about the trips, so the approved traffic study, when you're doing a traffic study, a master plan traffic study for such a big development, it's, at that point, it's all speculative. So you do your best to say, we like this type of land use here and this component, and you want to be conservative, which they tried to be conservative. The trips that they've estimated during the peak times, which is really what drives the improvements, that's what we want to tie the trip bank to, or at least keep track of, because as things change and different uses come in, if it ends up being a lot more intense than what was planned for, we need to know when we get to that point of, where.
But then what? So we get to that point where it's, I'm just saying figuratively, we get to that point and we were way ahead of our trips. They cut back on the plan, or what's the result of them getting ahead of the trips that they had planned for?
I don't know that they would be able to get ahead with what they're planning and what the development is. The trips that were included and the type of development that was in here were really high during the peak times. And I think that as the plan's kind of changing and uses are changing and the market's changing, they did do an updated plan or trip generation evaluation back in February that assumed some different components based on where they think the market's taking it. And those trips were actually tangibly less than what was in the approved study. But the improvements are still based on what was in the approved study. So as a traffic engineer, if I were on their team, I would have used higher trips and tried to be more conservative so that, you didn't get into a situation where you run out of trips if land use has changed. So I think they have a good number for what the improvements were based on. And if
guess
the mix
so.
ends up being what they're saying, then they shouldn't reach that threshold.
I know, but if they do, then what? Like, what's the point in making a condition if we don't know what what the trigger is? Like, what happens?
Well, we know the trigger.
Yeah, we know the trigger, and really what it would be is if they get a user in here that's significantly more intense on one parcel, all of these aren't going to come in at one time. One parcel is going to drive another parcel. If those trips start getting close to the threshold, then they're going to be limited on how they can market the remaining parcels and how intense those remaining
Okay,
parcels
that's what
can
I was
be.
asking.
Yeah, that's why we put the condition in the number of trips, and we will continue to monitor that as we go along.
I just don't want to be pressured, and I probably won't be on the board at the point in time that happens, but or I may not be on the board at the point in time that happens, but I just don't want to board them to come in and say, hey, wait a second, we were approved for this plan, and then have it be an absolute just traffic nightmare.
Understood. I think
Right.
that's what we're, at least on the review side, that's what we're trying to protect the
It does
township
make me feel
from.
better to know you guys are involved and not just PennDOT, because again,
Yeah.
politically correct. We live here, and so we have to protect the residents that are gonna come in and out of that community.
Was
And those
there any
areas.
But Mike
thought
and I
of
are-
trying to
Mike-
get an exit off 79?
What?
Was there any thought of trying to get an exit off 79 for access?
That was that's an impossibility.
There would be zero chance of that happening.
You say it is a
An
possibility?
impossibility.
Yeah.
What's an interstate highway interchange, like 50 million or 100 million now? Yeah, I mean, it's
80
like some
million, maybe
ridiculous
more,
number.
with
But they
what
wouldn't give it
cost
to you
of it.
anyway because it-
You couldn't get a
Too
new
close.
interchange here. The process for getting an interchange on an interstate is in and of itself probably a 5 to 8 year process, and it requires federal approval. And it's the proximity of this interchange to the other interchanges that are along here. It's not something I would ever see being approved.
Mike, just to be clear, so we can close the loop on this trip issue, so if they do exceed the trips currently logged in the trip bank, then are you saying at that point we revisit the transportation impact study and we see if there are additional transportation changes that need to be made at that time and you condition it in the future? Or what does happen if
Essentially,
20 years from now they
essentially, that's what we would be saying.
Okay,
Is, so we're going to do the trip bank on the national data that says this particular type of use is going to generate this amount of traffic, because that's what the analysis is based on. There will be an opportunity after things start to develop in here to get actual data.
Right.
So the national data is compiled, hundreds and hundreds of sites is compiled, and it says here's what you could expect the trips to be for this type of use that's this size. It's not always going to follow that line. So when you have a big mixed-use development like this, and that was another thing that we considered, is we looked at each one of these parcels and uses. When I say we, when we had them look at it this way, as if they were kind of standalone developments with their own trips associated with them and not really anything shared between one and another. That's just another level of being conservative with the traffic that we're evaluating. The reality is the type of uses, if it ends up being the development that it could potentially be, a lot of the traffic is going to be incestual to the site. But those trips that we made them look at it as if they were all standalone and everybody was going to come to each one of those from outside. But a lot of them are actually going to occur inside when it's built out. So I'm very comfortable with years of back and forth and the analysis we've made them perform and really the number of trips that they ended up doing these improvements with. I think the township should be comfortable and pretty protected that it'll be really hard to exceed when you consider all of those other factors.
okay,
We'll open it up to the residents in a little bit.
thank you.
What is the time frame for the build-out of this?
We intend to start, doing grading in the spring.
And
Obviously, I'm sorry, obviously that's pending any affirmative approval.
Correct. I apologize. Yes.
pending what approval?
Any approval from
Oh,
you at the township here this evening?
Yes.
And then how long until the whole site plan, ideally, I mean, I know we can't hold you to it, but like ideally until it's completely built out?
Yeah,
So our schedule indicates that we're going to be about a year and a half doing all the site clearing, but again, that's going, as, depending, maybe people will come in the interim or what have you, we can't say, but our schedule right now is about a year and a half to do the site clearing.
for grading alone to produce pad-ready sites and then hoping no recession, maybe we're already in one, who knows, right? And market conditions depend on the absorption of those
So-
tenants coming.
So year and a half we're grading, then we're building these plans.
Building
How
more-
long
building-
until the whole thing's done?
Oh,
That's, 7 years for everything. It's a long time.
Okay.
How many of these here, commercial properties are already looking good or wanting to occupy?
Yeah.
Let's use that word, occupy.
Yeah, I
I know
mean,
you got
there's-
one here that there's a potential occupancy, but what about the other 6?
Yeah, we think the township will be very happy with the users that come, and we're getting substantial interest. Again, we're very early in the process. We need an affirmative approval here this evening to keep to many schedules. Other than that, unfortunately, I can't tell you the answer.
So in other words, these commercial properties are going to stay commercial, and they're not going to say, well, gee, we can't put a commercial building in there, so we're going to put some more apartments in, or we're going to put some more townhouses in, or something like that.
I think Mr. Deseroth may be able to say that any substantial changes, like what you just described, would require us to come back here for any other approval. But obviously, that's not our intention. That's why we came with you with the plan that we have right now.
Can I ask how big that apartment building's going to be and about how many apartments in it?
Yeah, it's likely 250 to 300 units, but we don't know.
250.
But we don't know that answer yet. Yeah, which is by modern standards, relatively low density.
So the board's going to see this plan over and over and over again. The purpose of tonight, this is really the land use categories, and on the map, they've indicated those categories. They're either residential or business, and they can even identify them more specific, like they identified the one as medical. So the illustrative site plan really just defines that pad, that's what it's going to be in the future. That's what you're looking at tonight. They have to come back in with full subdivision, land development, all the other approvals that they have to get. So this is just the very first step, but it sort of establishes it's kind of a master plan process. But it's not it's a specific use, but it's not the building. So you'll see the apartment building come back in, you'll be able to look at everything related to that. That
I think
comes.
we understand that, but,
Yes.
yeah. I think we understand that. I think, though, you have to understand from our perspective, this has been talked about for a very long time. This is the first time they're before us in the public setting. And once we kind of set the ball in motion from the site plan perspective, we're on this train whether we want to be or not. So
agreed.
So we understand what we're approving, but we may have some questions. If you can't answer them, you can't answer them, and if you can, great. We'll only consider things that we can consider tonight, but this has been a long time coming.
And any questions that you have, we're here for the long haul. So if you feel free to take your time, think it through, and we'll answer whatever, you can throw at us. And if we can't answer it, clearly we'll just say this, just like your question, Supervisor Barney. We can't tell you exactly who's coming, but as RJ said, we think everybody will be, well, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people will be pleased.
Great. Any other board questions before I open it up to the public? If you have a question, I just ask that you step to the microphone. If you guys, Jack, is there a way for us to have somebody stand next I don't want everybody crowded in one little area. If you have a question, just step to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. If you're with her, you can go up with her.
Yes.
Unless she says no, and then that's
I don't
up.
want to embarrass you. It's Cindy Mazinski, Moszynski, and we live at 543 Morganza Road. So that's why we're here, we live at the property that's going to be affected by the turning lane, apparently. We're coming from Cannonsburg towards Lewicki Road. They're going to put a third lane in, if I'm correct. And we're concerned because we have not been contacted about that. We got a letter about a year ago saying they wanted to acquire our property. So the gentleman got back to me, and I asked a number of questions, and he said, I'll get back to you. And that was approximately a year ago. So then on the 19th of August, we received that letter from the Army Corps of Engineers that said we had till the 19th to submit in writing our concerns. So I called the Army Corps of Engineers, I called the Cecil Township, and then I called Mr. Sabatino. He returned my call saying that he would get a hold of the engineers, which a week later we got a notice from Charles Layton from Keystone Acquisitions, who said that probably by the end of September he could get us some answers. We spoke with Mr. Sabatino last week, and he said that he would get us answers, but he probably couldn't have them before this board meeting. And then I believe you got a message the other day saying he didn't know exactly when the engineers would be able to give us answers to our questions. So I'll tell you what our questions are. So we're wondering why, especially since Maple Ridge was contacted, which is just about a half mile from us, why we weren't contacted. So that's a good question. But if they're going to take out our property, there's a creek that runs in front of us. So what's going to happen with the water? And if they're going to divert the water, are they going to also take out all the 65 or 70-year-old trees that are along our property? And if that happens, well, then that caused the hillside to erode. Also, we have an older home that has gray water and a leach bed. So how is that going to be affected? Our driveway, too, if they're going to come up, they said at least 20 feet. How is that going to affect the way the driveway goes? It's a little bit steep now, but if you take 20 feet off of it, I would say it's going to be very dangerous and steep. So then they're going to have to go across our property. I think they're reasonable and legitimate questions. I don't think they're unreasonable. And I guess we've lived there 44 years, my husband much longer than that. We've been in the township, but we would just like some consideration. That's what I can remember. What would you like to say? I'm sorry.
Quickly, can I ask just one thing? So they're just taking a portion of the property in the front of your house, not your actual whole home?
They are not, but they will be building beside us, on both sides and behind us. So that barrier issue is also an interest to us as well.
For sure. Okay, sorry.
And my name's Tony Mazinski. My parents have lived there since 1940. I've lived there the past 65 years, so I have a pretty good idea of the property and of the surrounding area. I hate to say this, but these guys are ill-informed, do not have information. I don't know how to describe it. I hate to say say badly or anything like that, but you need to walk the property to get an idea of what's going on. You know, and I don't know if you've done that or not. But nonetheless, if you look on the map, see where the little turn signal,
The
where
traffic
traffic light is up there at the top? Our property is directly beside that. Oh, okay, this is my cat's not here. Okay. Right here. Okay, like right there, that is where the traffic light on Lewicki Road and Morganza. Our house is right here. And if you see how there's like this cutout into the area right there, well, that cutout actually goes not 20 feet, but it goes actually by about 50 or 60 feet up our driveway. Cuts our driveway literally in half, goes through our leach bed, cuts off our utilities, and a full row of tall pine trees, which was used as a barrier from all the traffic that goes by.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, I'm not against progress. I've seen it coming, look how Cecil Township has progressed through the years. But if it has to be done right and not at the expense of the people who have lived here as well. And if you're going to do something, fine, but make sure you do it right. Now, they want to go and put a turning lane over top of the creek that sits right there.
So what will happen with that water is
Right.
a good question.
Well, I guess there's ways to handle that, but he also owns the other side of the road. So why not go to the other side of the road as opposed to this side which has the water? Now, just to show you, this is not occasional water. Sometimes over the years, there's a bridge that's right there that was built in 1919. Say it again?
Use that pointer again on the other side of the road.
We're right there. That's
This
our
is my
house
house,
right there.
and this is our neighbor, who was also not informed at all about
He's received
anything.
nothing.
Anyways, he was gonna be here, but I think he still works. So you see our driveway right there? Look how far they come up our driveway. My leach bed is right there. My water, everything else is right there. So they're gonna cut out this whole area where all these trees are, and here's the stream that's right here. Right here is a little bridge that goes across for the water. Over the years, sometimes the water is so intense coming off from back in, let's see if this thing works. From over here, back up here from this, they declare this a wetlands, by the way. That opening for underneath the bridge is like about 5 feet high, about almost 10 feet wide. Sometimes that water has been so high, it almost overflew the bridge. That's how much water. So I'm not talking about an occasional stream, something a little bit in between a couple hills or something like that. This is a significant amount of regularly running water. If the trees are cut out, that reduces our barrier, number one. Number two, it also holds the ground in place. And water seeks its own level. Pretty soon, we saw down the road what happened in front of Clad Metals. Many years ago, there used to be a barn right there. Whenever they took that barn out, all of a sudden that hillside just kept going, going, and going. And that's without a whole lot of water. I have a place that has a whole lot of water and a hillside. And they want to dig into that and cut it off. So anyways, I'm just saying, I'm sure there's ways to go around this, but we've not been informed of those ways, number one. Number two, is he willing to spend the time and money to go ahead and do that the proper way? Go into the other side of the hillside. I see already things. There are people up and down our road, on Morganza Road, doing things already. Is this because there's already been preparation? And another thing about getting this information on the last day, we got it on the 19th, and that was the end of our ability to go ahead and make any calls. As soon as we got that in the mail in the afternoon, we started calling. We were supposed to have that 30 days ahead of time. Seems to me like somebody's trying to sweep something underneath the carpet and get it done.
We just want answers, that's all, and we want to be, satisfied with the answers. Like, I really appreciated what you were saying about the barriers and so forth. So if we can just get answers that will make this go very smoothly, nicely. That's all we're asking for, nothing more than that. But we would like it not to go so swiftly through without that consideration.
And also the driveways, there's no place, if you look on here, where's our driveway gonna go? Look, here's the edge of our property, and here's where they're gonna cut, and so where are we gonna go? We can't go this way, we have to go this way, so there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, just answers.
So let me ask, John, RJ, can you answer any of their questions tonight on the record? Can,
Wait, one question before he gets into that. Gretchen, there can't be eminent domain involved, right? They keep saying they're going to want to take, or they're taking this. There's no eminent domain either, right?
No, they're not, they don't have any.
So when they keep saying you're taking it,
Well, no, but
they want to take it.
yes,
get
but
it.
if you approve this, what happens?
Well, I mean, they don't have power of eminent domain.
But what happens if we approve it and if they
Well, that doesn't affect their rights.
The condition, that-
Gretchen has a valid point, though. It's a state road, and once the state approves the design, then they have the state has eminent domain. It doesn't seem,
Once it's approved, it's approved. Here's the last paragraph dealing with traffic from the information I received. Significant traffic mitigation efforts will be constructed at Morganza and Lewicki Road. These measures will be built concurrently with the development of rough graded pads as part of Phase 1 of Cool Valley. So this goes from the start of the get-go. This isn't like something way down the road. They're going to start doing this right away. So that's also a concern, like, okay, you're going to do this right away. Let's get our ducks in a row. Let's see, what do you have planned? Let's see, like, again, I'm not against it. It just, let's be well-informed and also do this the right way.
The developer should be able to answer this, though.
wait, hold on, Tom, let them, go ahead, answer. Can you go through each, each question individually and give them the opportunity to ask them?
So how are you going to move the water?
I'm not an engineer. However, it's my understanding, and it's kind of it's the code, that any stormwater that is impacted on a site in any project is to be handled such that any stormwater will be discharged the same or better condition than the way that it was found.
RJ, though, I don't think it's stormwater. It's a creek, correct?
It's not stormwater. It's a regular running creek. Yeah, so we're not allowed to move them.
Okay.
Okay, so,
I mean, I used to fish in it.
yeah, so DEP and the Army Corps of Engineer have already done a walk of the site and did the assessment of the,
Yes.
we did the assessment of the wetlands and streams, and, the DEP said don't disturb any of the streams. For where PennDOT is crossing the road, they identified that the culvert was a little bit undersized. So they said, well, since it's undersized now, why don't you improve it? So that is one of the reasons that is included in these improvements. I mean, it's also with the turn lane there. So with the DEP and the stream relocation, there's certain conditions have to be met. You have to guarantee the stability of the stream bed, so you make sure you can't create any scour conditions. You have to look at the stream bed and the stream bank as well. So the stream bank has to be stable, so you can't create any conditions that causes erosion. If the soils or slopes are such that they're prone to destabilization, conditions have, certain stipulations are made that you have to create, either through riprap or walls or other construction methods to stabilize the stream banks.
So is this done in writing already?
It's the regulations.
So,
So why isn't it have been given to us, since we are directly infected by it?
Yeah, we can send you the comment letters if that's what you want.
I think that we don't want to get contentious about this at all. We're just asking for answers. You're proposing to take our property, or buy our property. I assume that's the conditions. but it's going to affect our life majorly. So we would like to understand how impactful it's going to be in our lives. And especially because it's more than just the hillside, the erosion, the driveway. It does connect because we have a septic system and our gray water runs into that. So those are also things that impact even more. And we would like to understand how that's going to be handled and also compensation. But we'd like to just have a conversation, and that hasn't even occurred. So I think you can understand where we're coming from. Again, we don't want to be contentious.
And,
Certainly talk more specific details.
yeah, but see,
Sorry. I didn't know what I was
stand still.
We're actually going to take
So-
a 5-minute break,
All
sorry.
right.
Sorry. Just take us 1 second, she just needs to plug in.
While she's doing that, just one question. Are you working with PennDOT on a taking? Like through eminent domain? I mean, I know you can't, but
No,
is there talk of eminent domain?
no, not to my knowledge, but we are working with a third-party right-of-way firm that's helping us. Correct. With- Sorry.
Sorry, we have to wait. We have to wait.
I think these problems should have been worked out before you even came here.
Well, these are.
Hold
this
on,
is-
hold on 1 second, we're having all the technical difficulties this evening. Do you need a plug? There you go. While she's doing this, I just have a question. Is this a conversation that you want us to have here, or would you rather just exchange information with them and have this offline?
I'll be honest, I don't feel like we've gotten any real answers or any real conversation. So I'm sorry, but that's just
That's
the
fine.
that's the reality.
I
So
didn't
maybe
want to
this
put you in a spot where you felt uncomfortable, because it
no,
seemed like you want. Okay.
because to be honest, we just would like this to be solved. However, it's
Yep.
going to be solved.
Okay, just give.
But the point is that if you approve these things tonight, like you were talking about earlier, they can go forward with this in the spring, as they just mentioned, as phase one.
Right.
And so that will directly
Hang on 1
impact us.
second, I want to get that on the record. I'm going to make you repeat yourself, hold on.
Can't remember what I said.
You keep repeating it to yourself.
And by the way, I didn't meant no disrespect to you as individuals. It's just that sometimes
concerns
you got,
Okay, sorry, if you could just
Let me
repeat.
finish. As I was saying, you should have worked these problems out with them and been in better communications before you even came to this board.
So, to that effect, we hired a third-party firm with GAI to help us identify which parcels we would need to be able to do, to create the right-of-ways that we've needed to make to expand the lanes. And you've been in contact with Keystone once, and that is our third-party vendors, something that was our oversight. And then you spoke with Mr. Sabatino himself, and actually I was in the office when you called the one time. And we are going to get her all the answers. Mark is our engineer, And he is working on how, with respect to the trees, the stream, mitigation of the stream, and, if we're going to have to improve it, and we have every intention, and Mr. Sabatino did say that we were going to get back to you, and I am tasked with getting some of those answers.
Can I
But
ask
you're
a quick
telling them that now, and meanwhile, you're talking about grading in the spring and everything, and they have no answers.
Yeah.
So, an approval of an illustrative site plan, we cannot proceed with the work if we wanted to grade the illustrative site plan like a tentative schedule was stated earlier this evening. If we don't have approval of everything we need for the engineering, maybe it includes a portion of what we're talking about impacting some of that, some of what's close to your property. Those improvements need to be concurrent with the development. We cannot do anything if we don't have those things settled. And those details we're most certainly working on, and we're going to get you all those answers. We'll get all your
And I
information.
do respectfully disagree with you.
And
Ducks
we
need to
can't
be-
give approval until they're satisfied.
Ducks kind of all have to be in a row before you start. And we don't want to be rude about it, but we need to.
Cart before the horse.
Yes, we just need to get things settled, because you can't start and then go, oh, by the way. I think you understand that. I understand this is a big project and you're excited about it and you want to do it and you want to move forward, but us little people have to be satisfied as well.
Yes, everybody's equal. There's no such thing as little people. But I will say that I'm not sure when your first conversation with Mr. Sabatino was, but.
Mr. Sabatino, we called him, I believe it must have been the 19th when we got that letter, August 19th.
And so. have you
What's
got-
the reason that they received the letter at the end of the comment period?
It's
don't-
actually dated, being mailed on the 17th. We received it on the 19th. And right in the letter, it says 19th is your last day to say anything.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, Keystone was, I said, is a third-party vendor who we've been using to help us get the right-of-ways, and we've relied on them to reach out, and I'm not sure when, they reached out to you a year ago, you said?
About 1 year ago, there was we got a letter saying, hey, some guys are going to be walking in your property. Don't worry. It was in February of a year and a half ago, that kind of thing.
But they didn't, it was within this year, and so we did not get back to him right away. Probably a few weeks passed, and we did, and then I asked those questions that I presented tonight. He said, I will get my engineers and get the answers because I do not have them. Here we are.
Yeah, and that's our engineer and who we will be getting the answers from.
Yeah, but again, the questions were asked so long ago, I don't understand why it has taken so long. They're not real complicated. I'm not an engineer, so they may be complicated. But in a big project like that, I think you probably could have.
So the concerned amount of time for when we are notified about this, for his ability to say things. And when somebody it's kind of almost like you hear somebody to say, hey, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. That's when I start to worry. Okay, you understand? Because that way, it's something that, oh, we'll take care of it, yeah, and it never gets done.
Mr. Flair made a very good plan. Might have been good to have had this conversation and finished it up before tonight.
And unfortunately, the timing, we're in process of getting those answers for you. But again, the answers and the work that needs to be done, the agreements that need to be made, will stop us from doing whatever needs to be done to move forward with the development, independent of what happens this evening.
Did I hear your engineer correctly, though, say that you have to reroute a stream? Is that what you said?
I don't believe
They're
so.
replacing a culvert,
Replace the,
that's all. Just replacing a pipe that already exists there that's undersized under the
Well,
road.
but he said the DEP
There is no
said they
culvert
couldn't
there.
touch the stream, but it sounds to me like they have to go over it, correct?
So this project requires many permits. PennDOT approval, Army Corps of Engineers approval, PADEP approval.
I understand that.
So all these permits, I'm just explaining, they all have to kind of work together. Everybody kind of gets their shot.
Antonio Mo approval.
I'm just asking out of curiosity, like you're saying, what is happening with the stream? It's staying where it is and you're just fixing the culvert? Is that what you're saying? Or It seems to me the stream is in part of the section of the roadway, or the part of the section of their property that they're taking. So what is happening to the stream?
So so we're not doing a full stream relocation, we're sort of just altering it slightly where it's entering the culvert. If that makes sense?
So you are, I mean, not, your definition of not majorly rerouting it, but you are rerouting it.
There's nowhere to go.
That's what
No,
that's what
I'm
stumped.
not trying to be evasive, it's the definition of the DEP is what we were doing would be considered a stream relocation.
I'm
even
not
though we're
trying to
doing a
stump
ma-
you.
I don't want to say, from the DEP's definition, we're doing that, but we're not doing we're not moving it 50 foot down the road.
Yeah, well,
I mean, you can move it 6 inches and that's rerouting the stream. I'm not
Yes.
talking about moving it down the road.
So are you building the road over to the left, I assume, and you're going to put a culvert and then the road goes on top of it? Is that correct? Because you're putting a third lane in, correct?
Correct.
And so is that going on the creek side of the road? Hence the reason you are going to move the water a little bit?
So this is being done by a different engineer, so I have to go off memory here, so.
If you look at the map, you can see, here's where the creek is, right here, this it comes back from this pond back up here and goes all the way down. And here's where our house is in the driveway. And it goes underneath a bridge right here at the bottom of our driveway. This water, there's nowhere to go. This is hillside, You can't make it go up in the air. I mean, they have to do something to build, if they're gonna build over it, they may have to put maybe a whole concrete thing, but if they're gonna put a third lane coming into this side of the road, I just don't comprehend how that's gonna happen. So some other questions need to be answered as far as that is concerned. Also, my concerns are, it will also devalue our property. You know, I have one daughter. What is this property gonna be worth to her after this is done, and there's no way even to get off the property? Nobody's gonna wanna buy this. You know, it's gonna be valueless. So, again, I'm not against it, let's do it right, and also not to hurt the individuals who live there as well. But my thoughts are.
I understand, thank you.
Wait,
Before
I
we
still
go-
needed my question answered. Gretchen, they keep saying that they're going to take it. Even if PennDOT approves that and we approve it, that doesn't give them a right to take it. Don't they have to negotiate for it? And if they can't, whatever it takes, they have to negotiate for it. PennDOT's not going to take it for them.
So they don't have the power of eminent domain, but the state does. It's either going to be a negotiated agreement, or it's going to be a taking, at which time, yes, they're also paid for it as
But why
well.
would PennDOT?
Mike's shaking his head, go ahead.
Why would PennDOT
Hold
take it?
on,
Wait,
let
let me
him-
just finish my question. Why would PennDOT take something for a private developer?
He has an answer to that.
I was just gonna say, PennDOT will not take it. This improvement is a highway occupancy permit by a private developer. PennDOT cannot and will not take property. Acquiring whatever right-of-way they need for this improvement is their responsibility. So they hired Keystone. My assumption is Keystone is assessing the amount of right-of-way that they need so that they can go and try to negotiate a price for the right-of-way that they need.
Hold on, we can't answer a question. We're gonna take a 5-minute, we wanna talk to our lawyer in executive session for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back to this hearing. So 5-minute bathroom break, whatever you need to do, we'll be right back. Microphone and state your name and address for the record. That's fine.
My name is Don Patton, D-O-N-N, Patton, P-A-T-T-O-N, 242 Maple Ridge Drive. There were several issues brought up during the Planning Commission that I wanted to make sure are being considered here by the supervisors. One of them is the mature trees that were going to be preserved during the period, and especially if the buffer is extended, we'd like to make sure those, if they're mature trees there, that they are maintained. The other issue, they were going to require staking the land at one point to make sure that we knew where things were so that excavation was done properly. Lights in the development would be directed away from Maple Ridge. And just to clarify when construction can be performed so that we know what noise levels and when they could occur. And let's see, and any mitigations that are necessary during construction to minimize the dirt that would be kicked up. Now, there are other residents here from Maple Ridge, and if they, why don't, all those from Maple Ridge, could you stand briefly? We got a few, okay. Yeah. Anybody else would like to make comments?
That's fine. Just state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Andrew Schrader, and Schrader, and I live at Maple Ridge, 306 Maple Ridge. Would you be able to take the map back up to what we had before, where you could see Maple Ridge and you could see the perimeter around it? Do you have that little laser pointer with you? Thank you. Let me see if I can get this to work. Okay, one of the comments that we were talking about with some of the neighbors there, I can't get this thing to go back on. There we go.
Hold it down.
I think it turned, there we go.
The top one, hold down. I got it the wrong way. Nope. Try this one. There we go. Okay, around the whole perimeter of Maple Ridge is a 50-foot buffer. It goes all the way down and around the whole perimeter of it. And one of the things that we were concerned about is that we keep that 50-foot buffer on their property all the way around the whole perimeter too. So the fact is, in that 50-foot area, our 50-foot area that we have is a common area with Maple Ridge. A lot of the grass goes back to the property line, but there's other areas where there's trees and there's vegetation up to that property line. So if we had the 50-foot on the other side, then we would be guaranteed that there would be at least mature trees all the way through there, all the way around it. I know right on, it used to be an old farm. Tom probably knows that up there. I've actually seen some of the fence posts still there in the property line right there. But there's beautiful mature cherry trees. There's maple, there's oak, there's sassafras, there's locust trees. All of that would give us some bit of a buffer. And the reason it would really not only make it nicer to just still live there with a little bit of buffer, it might cut down on some of the noise and some of the dust during the construction. That was one of the questions that I wanted to ask of the developer, just what are your plans for mitigation on the dust and the noise that the residents are going to have to put up with?
So we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we mitigate, construction noise, dust, and, as, the other gentleman that was speaking from the association, is that, just about everything that he said, we're on board with. We're not going to be constructing in the middle of the night. We're not going to have, we're going to do everything we can to make sure the dust is, not going to, the dirt's not going to fly around. If we have to keep the ground moist, we will. If we have to make sure that, we'll give you plenty of heads up when construction is happening, and so that, we can be the best neighbors we can, but we are.
Well, I know that the noise is going to be a big concern because across the valley, we can still hear when the traditions are doing work over there. So that's my point about having the buffer with the trees and the vegetation, that it might help that a little bit anyway. So that was one of the biggest points that we were concerned about. Now, I guess they did this. Having been a supervisor before, I know that the area up there that is all residential now was never planned in the beginning. So whenever maybe Dan or the developer can tell us, they did take into the added traffic that'll be added into there with a PennDOT road study, did they not? With residential areas added in, Dan?
Yeah, I'm going to look to Mike on that.
The area, originally, where the residentials were on the map that I have from years ago when I was a supervisor, that wasn't in there. I know they did the road study. Did they do a revised road study that took in the amount of traffic with the residential areas?
So did their trip generation include residential?
Yeah,
Did they?
That's
So-
the question.
it had residential.
Because we know there'll be more added traffic with all the residential areas up there. But they did do another road study on that, right?
They did an update that had 370 residential units.
Okay, so they did do that then, thank you. And I guess this is just one other question that's way ahead of everything here, but I don't know. I know whenever we developed the South Point over there, we'd put restrictions on buildings that could only be 4 stories. Have the supervisors thought of anything like that? Is there going to be some time of restriction down the road? Are you going to allow 6 or 8 story buildings, do you think? I was just curious what anybody had thought about.
I think we should follow the same guidelines.
Very similar guidelines, Ron, keep them at 4 stories or maybe 5, or not much more, right?
Yes.
It says garden apartments, 4 stories or 50 feet, mid-rise apartment buildings, 6 stories or 70 feet, all others 35 feet. So around the 4-story mark is part of
Okay.
the ordinance requirement.
So that answers the question then.
But that's residential, but commercial, it's 75 feet.
Oh, yeah. She said, what about the
Okay.
medical? She's
Well, that's good. I'm just hoping that they'll consider the 50-foot buffer on both sides like that so that we could have a little bit of protection. Thank you.
Hang on 1 second. Darlene said, what about the medical? And she's right, that's a,
They're gonna put a hospital in there, is it gonna be just 4 stories?
no.
No.
I wouldn't think so.
The ordinance calls out hospital,
What's the?
Okay.
75 feet.
75 feet.
75 feet.
What was
So
that? I missed that.
75 feet for the hospital, so.
5. Okay, so it could be a little higher then. All right, thank you.
Any other questions by members of the audience?
Dennis Sluchak, resident and owner of Sluchak Contracting at 47 Grudovich Road. Pardon me? Sluchak, S-L-U-C-I-A-K. I've been running a excavating business out of Grudovich Road for the past 50 years. And if you notice, Grudovich Road is wider than normal roads entering into the site. And the reason for that is when PennDOT was doing Merganza Road and South Point Boulevard, they were made aware of the business I was running out of there and that I was moving heavy equipment and low boys. Now I hear that they're going to be putting a 4-lane from South Point Boulevard down to Lewicki Road. Is that correct? Is that what I'm reading?
Yes.
Okay. Was there any thought or consideration about the traffic coming off of Grudovich Road onto Morganza Road?
I'm sure that there was included in the study.
Well, if it was included, no one, I don't see it. I mean, number one. Number two, I don't think you even have a engineering firm hired to do this study or do this
Well, the design,
intersection.
yeah, the design is still at the redevelopment authority. So they've currently have done an RFP, and they are going to assign that RFP to the winner, and then the design process will begin.
Right, they're still soliciting bids for an
Correct.
engineering firm to design.
Correct.
Okay. So, on the little bit of information that I've seen, I mean, how's that going to take in consideration of me moving heavy equipment out on the Merganza Road?
The traffic study that is being based for the design of the improvements has already been completed, so all of that analysis has already taken place.
All that what?
All of the analysis that you're asking about has already taken place, sir.
Was that taken into consideration in the study, Grudovich Road?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, would like to enlighten me on what was the impact and how I'm going to be negatively impacted?
I don't have that exact information off the top of my head. I'm not a traffic engineer, but the traffic study is something that you can access by a public records request, I believe.
Okay, well,
And we can connect after this, and I can give you my card. I can connect with our engineers and give you the information that you desire.
Dan, you've reviewed some of these drawings or studies as far as what GAI has done?
We've reviewed the traffic impact study.
Hold on.
We haven't reviewed the plans yet. The plans are still being developed.
Right. There's not even an engineer hired to design it yet.
So,
But
Denny,
what my question is, did anybody take in consideration the existing traffic coming off of Grudovich that's going to have to contend with 4 lanes now?
so hold on. So here's my recommendation to you, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of the whole board. I think maybe given the lateness of the hour, we ask for a few more questions that you can answer. And I would recommend that you bring back the person that did this study with you and maybe a few other engineers to answer some of the questions that we were unable to get answers to tonight. Because I think that at this point, you're unable to answer his question.
I understand completely what you're asking, and we do have a traffic engineer here to answer general questions, and the traffic study that's been submitted and approved by PennDOT has been submitted and approved by PennDOT. The improvements that we're going to be required to perform will be performed. Obviously, concurrence, as it says in the traffic study, as it says in our plan, concurrence, the traffic improvements concurrence with the phase 1 grading of the illustrative site plan as we have it here in front of you. Respectfully, I understand if that's the board's desire. We do have time concerns, which is why I think we did respectfully also request a special hearing. Some of these questions, while important, we see as maybe not exactly relevant to the illustrative site plan, but if that's the board's wish, then that's the board's wish.
Our expectations were that you would come prepared. And I think there's been a lot of questions that have not been answered or have been answered in a very vague way. And so you have to understand that we see a lot of developers before us in this township, and we can't just say, we can't just take your word for it that don't worry, we're going to get it done. It's our job as board members to make sure that certain things are done and to make sure that we understand the impacts of everything and that we are under obligation to condition things so that this works well in our township.
Completely.
So I understand the time constraint, but quite frankly, there's been a lot of stuff not answered.
I completely hear
I
and
think
understand.
this needs to be tabled.
Yeah, that's what, we're gonna get
We
to.
have a small amount of residents here, and they all got questions and never have gotten any answers. Mr. Sluchek, have they approached you? Don't they have to buy land off you?
They'd never approached me or told me anything. GAI asked for permission to enter my properties down there and do some core borings. I asked them to see drawings or anything that they had reports on. They would never share anything with us.
I don't think you're prepared. I really don't. I make a motion to table this.
Well, we have to continue this hearing.
But let me ask you, Ron,
Hold on, Denny, hold on. if that is the desire of the board, which I do, I want to get to you because you've raised your hand like 5 times. So I want to get to her. Denny, your question, they can't answer unfortunately, but give us 1 second to let her talk. And then we're going to continue this tonight. I'm going to open the special meeting, and I believe the desire of the board at this point is to table it. We will tonight at our special meeting, so immediately following this, we will schedule another hearing to come, but I would, again, recommend that you come prepared with people that can answer the questions.
I understand completely, and may I say for the record that as part of our submission and as part of what's been spoken into the record, even by Gateway engineers, in regards to the approval process and the adequacy of the design of the traffic improvements that we will be required to perform has been stated. So, thank you. Completely
But
understand.
RJ, for the record, since you brought up Gateway Engineers, we did have a pre-application meeting, and my advice to the developer was that you needed to meet with all the impacted residents. And I realize and I appreciate you did that with Maple Ridge, but there's other individuals that live around the property that have concerns, and I think that's everybody's concern tonight. We just want to make sure that that happens.
Understood.
Go ahead.
Hi. Gosh, that's a little unsettling. Michelle.
Your name and address for the
Please,
record.
absolutely. Michelle Turbanic, Turbanic, and I'm at 260 Maple Ridge Drive. I'm actually the president of the HOA over there. Thank you guys for setting up the meeting with us. First of all, we really did appreciate that. But my understanding is that there were certain discussions at the Planning Commission about what we really wanted to see concerning our property lines at this meeting. And as far as I can tell, none of those issues have been addressed. We would very much like to see you guys stake that back line and let us know exactly where your property line ends, where this proposed 50-foot buffer would be, which Ms. Fisher, we're very, very appreciative of, and thank you for bringing that up. And in general, all of you, thank you for being concerned about Maple Ridge and making sure that we're not completely and totally disrupted from the way of life we have had. I also have additional concerns about the traffic. Right now, and I understand via the PennDOT study that they don't think there's going to be as much traffic going right down Morganza Road and coming towards McMurray Road and then going towards 19. Depending on what goes into those commercial plots, the only grocery store in the area is down Morganza Road and then off either to Cannonsburg or to Donaldson's Crossroads. We're concerned that it's going to be very difficult, especially dropping from 4 lanes down to 2, to even get in and out of Maple Ridge. So the other thing that we would really like, especially considering this is only phase 1, is that as phase 2, 3, 4, however many are added onto this, another traffic study is done, reevaluation of how it's going to be for us to get in and out of our development is addressed with each new development. And then my last concern, that simply to echo everything that Don already said, but my last concern is that we're not getting any information on what kind of medical center is going in. And I understand that they are not at a point where they can give us that information. But if we're talking a potential trauma center, now we have lights, sirens, air flight traffic, all things that we're going to be directly surrounded by. So I just think that we need more information from them about the businesses that are going in before we give them the go-ahead to do this. And I appreciate that it sounds like tabling is where we're headed, and I think that you are doing right by your citizens in taking that approach. So thank you.
That's a great point about the lights and sirens, and so great job bringing that up, because that's a valid point. So at this point, I'm going to ask for the board to continue this hearing if all... Yes, we're going to
go to the meeting first before you can.
We have to continue this hearing.
Right.
And then I'm going to table it, yeah. So I'm in a hearing right now, and then I have to open a special meeting. So if everybody's okay with it, we're going to continue this hearing, yes? Everybody, good? Continuing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, this hearing has been continued. I'm now going to open our special meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order. You're done, yeah. Please stand to salute the nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In attendance this evening are Supervisors Fisher, Agizio, Fleer, Barney, and Cassiola, as well as Solicitor Gretchen Moore and then Township Engineer Dan Dizeroth. Administrative items, 189, 2022, consider conditional use application 2022-0027 for the Cool Valley Illustrative Site Plan, location Lewicki Road, C1 General Commercial, BPD Business Park Plan Development, and IHPD Interstate Highway Plan Development zoning districts. Do I have a motion
I'll make that motion.
to table? You want to table? Darlene, is your motion to
I'll
table?
make a motion to
Yes.
table.
It's been moved, and I'll second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
May I make one quick, or two comments, or am I out of?
Yes, just give me 1 second. We're going to need to reschedule the hearing. So,
What's going on Monday after our October meeting?
hold on, that's why I'm trying to open my calendar. Yeah. That's fine. It's Columbus Day. Is everybody okay with that? At 7 or 6?
Wait, what day are you picking?
Monday, the 10th, I thought you said.
Day after a weekend.
Monday, the 10th?
I can't be here, but you don't need me.
You can't be here. Okay,
No,
well then,
don't-
no, you need you here. Everybody needs to be here. What about going, I mean, we don't have to do a Monday. What if we do Thursday, October 6th? Does that work? Tom? No?
Wait, no,
Huh? Oh,
talk to them.
sorry. He has to make a phone call.
One thing I'd like to see you.
Go ahead, Rockies. Go ahead, Ron.
When you guys come back, some final blueprints and plans, something to demonstrate to show us.
Blueprints of, I'm sorry, blueprints of?
Of like Mr. Sluchek's asking, of the road and that.
We can provide those to you.
Yeah. So this is actually to my point about traffic in general, is that, you know, everybody here, I'm sure, has been part of the development process. And all we did was we hired those gentlemen back there and said that we would like to do this development, which you see in front of you. And these are the three intersections that PennDOT's saying are going to be affected. What do we have to do to fix these intersections? And we gave them those instructions. They created a plan. They did the trip studies. They did all of the engineering things that they said are necessary to make those intersections work for what we propose. That's right there on our illustrative site plan. And they gave us their recommendations. They gave us their plans. They took those plans and then they gave them to PennDOT. PennDOT said, yes, this works. This is going to account for the number of trips. This is going to make the intersections flow. You're going to get stacked. You're going to have all these, you're going to have all these things, and everything is going to work. And so that's what we're taking as our traffic, for how our traffic is going to flow, and whether or not, and I know we've used the term, we're not engineers, but that's what we've asked. That's what we hired the engineers to do, is to be able to tell us what do we need to do to make this work. And we're not asking to not do anything. We're on the hook for $30 million right now just for those intersections. And it's not going to be $30 million. It's $30 million today. When we get to it, it's not going to be $30 million anymore. It'll probably be more. And so, we are going to put a substantial investment in this. And we are going to do exactly what our transportation engineer tells us and what PennDOT recommends, because, we have to have a standard, right? If PennDOT says that this is how it works, we need to follow that standard. Otherwise, we could fall off the rails and we wouldn't know where we would go. So with respect to traffic, that's what I wanted to say, is that it's not that we're trying to get off cheap or anything, it's just that we're trying to get to a point where the state says, this is good, this is what works, this is what the engineers agree with, and this is what,
I understand all that.
Yeah.
But the people that are getting impacted aren't being advised.
Yeah, and that is something that I will take
Mr.
up.
Sluchek owns, you're gonna have to buy property off him on both sides of the road.
I don't think so. I don't think we're doing any,
Are you widening 4 lanes going down there?
yeah, but I don't think that, Mark, we're not doing anything over there. Don't think.
Coming
that-
out of South Point. He's right as you make a right coming out of South
If you
Point.
look at the right-of-way up there, we don't need, that's all PennDOT that you're going to be using. So PennDOT right-of-way already.
I don't think so.
But my point is that all I was trying to say is that we're using, that's what we're going to use for, as our standard, so that we can, we want to be good neighbors. We want to, we want to make sure that the roads are working and that there's no traffic and no one gets jammed up. And that there's, and we also need to find a standard that's going to make it work. And that's why.
And this has been discussed for years and years, and all of a sudden, we gotta rush it through.
Well, that's because we had,
I mean, you don't even have the design yet, you said. You're waiting for
For
somebody
what?
to design it, for the road and everything.
for the road, for South Point, we do
Yes.
not. Well, no, it's in process, but we're going to do McMurray and Lewicki right now.
You have a design for that?
Yeah, it's already submitted.
So,
And final approval from PennDOT is,
I mean, to Supervisor Fleer's point,
there's South. That's the
Yeah,
South
have you
Point,
reviewed it?
Morganza.
So I've reviewed the plan. My job is to review the internal part of it and township ordinances. Typically, we don't get involved in, we review the traffic impact study, but the actual roadway plans, it's PennDOT's road, so they review the roadway plans. We don't really have anything to say about it. We would just make sure that it includes the things that are in the impact study, and they do what they say they're gonna do, so.
I understand it, but the property I own there is approximately, probably about 45 acres, 50 acres. And I'm sandwiched in between South Point Boulevard and your plan, Lewicki Road. When I develop my property, at this point in time, I think that the traffic needs to be taken in consideration of the property that would be entering onto Morganza Road that hasn't been developed yet. I understand that there's no immediate plans for it yet, but let's face it, once you get started, that property.
You want to get started too, I understand. So what we can, like RJ said, we would be more than, sorry, I'm not used to holding a mic. As RJ said, Mr. Sluchak, we'll sit down and we can figure this out.
Well,
We'll sort it
that's
out.
what I need, because
Okay.
if it doesn't get developed, I'm still running a business out of there, and
Yeah.
I still have to get my equipment out of there, I still gotta get material out of there, I got triaxles running out of there.
Yeah. No,
Can you imagine triaxles trying to cross 4 lanes of traffic?
right, and then, again, this isn't something that we can get involved in, but this is like an example of things that should have been addressed prior to coming to the board, because while we want to take your word for it that you're great guys and you're going to do everything you can, we can't do that. So the object of the hearing next time you come, which I'm going to propose September 28th at 7 o'clock, come prepared. Come with the people that can answer the questions. Come with the talk between now and then, talk to the residents who came tonight, talk to the residents who didn't come tonight. And then if we do it on the 28th at 7 and it goes by fine and we're ready to vote, we'll vote
28th
at
of
September. We will vote at our October 3rd meeting on the plan.
6 o'clock or 7 o'clock?
It's up to you. You want to do 6 or 7? Let's do 7. Well, let's do 6. Yeah, let's do 6.
Let's do 6.
Yeah.
You're proposing a special hearing the September 28th.
A continuance of the hearing
Okay.
on September 28th at 6 o'clock. We're not going to call another special meeting, but we're going to do September 28th at 6 o'clock. And then we're going to, if we are done and the hearing is over on the 28th, that's after that 28th meeting, we will add it to our agenda for our October 3rd meeting for a public vote.
And so those are two public hearings.
The one public hearing and then our normal public meeting, our normal first Monday of the month meeting.
Both public.
And RJ, I only see like 3 or 4 homes that are, other than Maple Ridge, that are loose around there, like the neighbors here. Talk to all of them before you come here.
Understood.
Thank you. Okay. This special meeting is closed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On the map?
Yeah.
She okayed it.
We supposed to give these back to Dan or what? Dan, are we supposed to give these back to you?
Yeah, we'll collect them all.
Yeah.